everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Thank you all for the love and support you've shown me and the channel.
Tohsaka Rin will become a magic god in Type Moon, Chapter 83 to 96. Chapter 83, Chaldea appears, and the dragon factor 1346 words in a forest on the outskirts of Fuyuki City. A dazzling blue light flashed, and a girl with orange hair in a single ponytail, and a moon with purple seaweed-like hair appeared in this empty forest. The light dissipated, and the girl lively examined the surrounding environment. Suddenly, the girl discovered something, ran quickly to the cliff of the forest, pointed at the city in the distance, and asked the man behind her, "Wow. Uncle Shinji, is that the legendary Fuyuki City?" This mature version of Shinji Mata slowly walked to the girl's side, looking at the city in the distance with nostalgia. "Gudako, this is the Fuyuki City where I and your master were born. Southwest, this is the place where Master, no, I should call her director now, was born." Mature Shinji looked at Gudako's profile, a faint smile appearing on his lips. Then, he took out a diamond from his bosom that looked to be 700 to 800 carats. "Gudako, keep this mountain of light safe." Gudako looked at the huge diamond in Shinji's hand and swallowed hard. Although Gudako had already known about this trial plan, she couldn't believe no matter what that her money-grubbing master would actually take out jewelry of this level. After trembling and taking the mountain of light, the ponytail that had been slightly perked up on Gudako's head also wilted as she took the diamond. "Gudako, rest assured. Although that Rin is money-grubbing, since she took it out, she won't blame you for using it up. It's a pity that among us, only you have inherited Rin's magecraft, otherwise, we wouldn't have had to let you come take this risk." Hearing mature Shinji's words, Gudako felt slightly relieved, but when she thought of Rin's obsessed with jewelry personality, she was still very worried. In Gudako's memory, her master, Tohsaka Rin, had once fought against the entire clock tower for this mountain of light. Mature Shinji looked helplessly at Gudako, who was cowering like a quail, rubbed her head, and instructed, "Gudako, remember, you must not come into contact with Rin during this trial. We can only act in secret. Uncle Shinji." At this time, Rin, who had finished seeing off her parents, returned to the Tohsaka annex looking at Sakura and Fujino, who were waiting for her in front of the annex gate. Rin felt her head begin to ache again. "Sakura, Fujino. I really don't know what to do with you two." Hearing Rin's words, Fujino giggled and walked to Rin's side, hugging her arm and acting spoiled. "I knew Master wouldn't have the heart to punish us." Sakura, not to be outdone, came to Rin's other side and hugged her arm, while also shooting a fierce glare at Fujino. With her arms held by Fujino and Sakura respectively, Rin pushed the two away somewhat uncomfortably. She glanced at the command spells on Sakura's hand and spoke. "All right, stop fooling around. Summon your servant." Sakura nodded, and soon Archer appeared behind her. Rin looked at the archer before her, her eyes twitching. How could it be this guy? Fortunately, Gil isn't here. If Gil saw this knockoff master, they'd probably start fighting on the spot. After Archer manifested, he first sized Rin up. "Is this the Rin of this world?" Then, with a hint of doubt, he asked Sakura. "Master, why have you called for me?" "Archer, my sister wants to see you. From now on, you must treat my sister's orders as my own." Archer was taken aback. He turned his head to look at Rin, and asked in a flippant tone. "So what are this young lady's instructions?" "Archer, your independent action ability as an archer is quite high, isn't it? Then you shall act independently from now on. Go scout information on the other masters and servants in this Holy Grail war for us." Archer was stunned. Rin's approach played right into his hands. Archer also wanted to know exactly how this world differed from his original one. "By your command." Archer answered loudly. Then, after bowing to Rin, he leaped lightly and dissipated into photons in the air. Fujino, seeing Archer completely disappear, walked to Rin's side and spoke. "Master, there's something wrong with that servant. Sakura and I only intended to complete a temporary contract to use the Holy Grail to strengthen my servant transformation, but that guy was actually summoned from such an incomplete ritual and refuses to reveal his identity. I feel this servant must have some kind of motive. Fujino, it's fine. Even though Archer won't say it, I know his true identity. His goals don't conflict with ours, so let him be. Alright, Fujino, Sakura, you two go back to your rooms in the Tohsaka Annex to rest. I need to find Da Vinci to take care of some business. After parting with Sakura and Fujino, Rin walked into the basement. Seeing Da Vinci busy with some work while wearing glasses, Rin greeted her, and then walked to her side to ask. Da Vinci, how is the extraction of the dragon factor going? Da Vinci led Rin to a device and opened it. A mist of magical energy drifted out as the machine activated. In the center of the device was the dragon factor extracted by Da Vinci, currently preserved in a test tube. The dragon factor looked like a mass of golden liquid, emitting speckles of starlight. Though it looked unremarkably even like some kind of beverage, the constant liquefaction and evaporation of magical mist around the test tube revealed the extraordinary nature of this dragon factor. Da Vinci took out the test tube, turned around, and explained to Rin, who had a puzzled expression. Rin, the dragon factor extracted from Gray's blood was originally red with a fire attribute. But after I used the Tiamat crystal you provided to sublimate it, this dragon factor was upgraded into one carrying divinity, which is why it turned golden. Because of this, the current dragon factor is far more powerful than that of the red dragon, which is why the liquefaction of magical energy is occurring. And the side effects. There can't be an upgrade without a price, right? Da Vinci gave Rin a dissatisfied look. Rin, I am Da Vinci. How could there be side effects? If you must count something, it's that the Tiamat crystal needs to be transplanted into your body along with the dragon factor to keep it from falling back into the red dragon form. Ah, sorry. I shouldn't have questioned your research. Da Vinci hadn't expected Rin to actually apologize and thought wonderingly, what's wrong with Rin? Of course, Da Vinci didn't know that after being treated that way by Monica, Rin had become much more focused on her pursuit of power. Then let's begin. Rin, follow me. Da Vinci led Rin to a corner of the basement. Then, with a flash of magical light, a door appeared on the wall as magical energy surged. Stepping through the door, a laboratory with more advanced equipment and a wider space appeared. The equipment Rin had damaged while using her reality marble last time was also in a corner of this lab. This was the true laboratory hidden by Rin, Da Vinci, and Tuko. Da Vinci led Rin to a device that looked much like a CT scanner and gestured for Rin to lie down on it. Rin looked at the device and lay down. As the magical furnace in the lab began to supply power, Rin soon felt exhausted and fell into a deep sleep unconsciously. Da Vinci looked at the sleeping Rin, walked to the side, and began changing into surgical scrubs. Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/TL Scarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone, if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating, thanks. Chapter 84, Dragon Factor Strengthening, Alice and Ayoko arrive. 1402 words. Da Vinci carefully operated the equipment, using it to directly bypass space and open Rin's heart. Then, with extreme care through the machine, she placed Tiamat's dragon crystal into Rin's heart. After confirming the crystal was settled in Rin's heart, Da Vinci looked up from the machine, took a towel to wipe the sweat from her forehead, and glanced at the dragon factor that was steadily flowing into Rin's body via transfusion. Next, Da Vinci moved Rin out of the machine. With one hand maintaining healing sorcery over Rin's heart, she deftly picked Rin up with the other, while holding the water bag continuously feeding the dragon factor to Rin in her mouth. I didn't expect Rin to be so light. Carrying Rin, Da Vinci walked to a surgical bed, gently placed her down, and hung up the bag. Then she pulled over a mechanical arm and flipped the switch. As the magic circle on the mechanical arm activated, the light of healing sorcery emanated from it. Having replaced the healing effect with the mechanical arm, Da Vinci then put on the noble phantasm she created for herself, the universal moon. Using the noble phantasm, Da Vinci reached through space and into Rin's chest cavity, beginning to graft Rin's nerves, blood vessels, muscles, and mage circuits onto Tiamat's dragon crystal. Time passed minute by minute. After operating the noble phantasm with full concentration for a long time, Da Vinci looked up and let out a long sigh of relief. A great success. Ha ha, I really am incredible. Then Da Vinci put away the mechanical arm and the noble phantasm, walked to the side, picked up a glass of water, and drained it happily. Next is just waiting for Rin to adapt to the dragon factor and crystal and wake up. I wonder how Tuko and the others are doing. If Tuko had been here to help with the surgery just now, I wouldn't be so tired. In a puppet factory in Fuyuki City. This factory was bought for Tuko by Tokiomi when she first arrived in Fuyuki City years ago. Over the years, Tuko had turned it into her own mage's workshop. The factory, which should normally be bustling with noise, was now silent as Tuko had announced a paid holiday before the Holy Grail War began. At this moment, not far away, a car drove into the factory grounds. Ayoko, getting out of the car, sized up the factory environment while carrying her luggage. This place isn't bad. It seems you've been living quite well with Rin these past few years. Tuko ignored Ayoko and together with Alice, opened the trunk and pulled out 3 suitcases. Unlike Ayoko, who only carried a small bag with a few changes of clothes, Alice had brought almost all her mystic codes and materials related to fairy tale magic to give her 2 best friends, Tuko and Rin, the greatest help in this Holy Grail War. These 3 large cases were those mystic codes and materials. Carrying the luggage, Tuko led Alice and Ayoko into the factory at the front. Coming to the rooms Tuko had prepared on the 2nd floor of the factory, after Alice and Ayoko had settled their luggage, Tuko led them out of the room with a face full of pride. Standing on the balcony, she clapped her hands toward the puppet production area below. Instantly, a magic circle expanded, covering the entire workshop. Then, a batch of puppets in the corner of the warehouse lit up their eyes, tore off their packaging, and walked out. They gathered around the machines originally used to produce ordinary dolls, and began to work, continuously manufacturing new puppets that came off the assembly line. How about it? Ayoko, interested in trying my puppets. Ayoko looked at the army of puppets self-producing below, and flatly refused. Alice calmly withdrew her gaze, looked at Tuko, and asked. Those puppets below, did you use servant technology? Tuko said proudly. Of course. I've been improving them over the years. Although, as Rin said, I still can't produce puppets with a spiritual foundation, these puppets are comparable to an average servant in strength and speed. As long as there are enough materials, I can produce hundreds in a single day. Ayoko then looked at Tuko with confusion. Wait, Tuko, where did you get so much money to buy materials? The Tohsaka family isn't that wealthy, is it? Hearing her sister's remark, Tuko rolled her eyes. It counts as Tohsaka family property, but sitting on a mountain of treasure and going out to beg. That's exactly how this family is. Ayoko became even more confused after hearing Tuko's words. Haven't you heard Rin talk about her experiences in the Fourth War? The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, that aerial fortress built using materials provided by Gilgamesh, is still lying on Mount Ryudo. There are tons of priceless materials inside. Just picking up a few can sell for a fortune. The money I've made from materials I've picked up there over the years is enough to assemble tens of thousands of these puppets. After hearing Tuko's explanation, not only Ayoko, but even Alice, the daughter of the Kwanji group, couldn't help but gasp. Although Alice lacked a concept of money, she could still roughly understand the value of the puppets before her. The materials for one such puppet would probably cost millions of dollars to acquire, and tens of thousands. Wouldn't that be tens of billions of dollars? Tuko, you didn't tell Rin, did you? No way, you have to give me a share. I want $10 billion or I'll tell Rin. Tuko shrugged at Ayoko. Go ahead and tell Rin. You should know that over the years, I've invested most of the money into Rin and Da Vinci's lab. I haven't kept much for myself. Even if Rin knew, she wouldn't say anything. And don't even think about the hanging gardens of Babylon. I've already picked clean the materials on the periphery, and everything inside has been used to set up magical traps. Aoko's expression changed upon hearing Tuko's words. A sweet smile appeared on her face as she hugged Tuko's arm, and said to her in a sickeningly sweet voice. Sister, dear sister. Just give me a little bit, have some pity on your younger sister. Tuko gave Aoko a mocking look and tried to break free from her embrace, but she found that no matter how hard she tried, even to the point where her veins were bulging, she couldn't pull her arm out of Aoko's grasp. This girl. I have a servant-level body, and yet I still can't beat her. Is she some kind of muscle freak? Alice just stood to the side watching the sisters' farce, a slight smile appearing at the corner of her mouth. Aoko, Tuko, it's been a long time since I've seen you two like this. After a long period of fooling around, Tuko, who ultimately could do nothing about Aoko, chose to compromise. While panting heavily, she pulled a check from her bosom and threw it to the overjoyed Aoko. Aoko happily took the check, looked at the amount on it, gave it a happy kiss, and then carefully tucked it into her bosom. Alice, seeing the two had settled their dispute, spoke up. Tuko, tell us about your plan. Meanwhile, in the hidden laboratory of the Tohsaka annex, Rin slowly opened her eyes, and a golden light shot out from them. As the golden light faded, Rin's pupils appeared golden. At the same time, a massive amount of magical energy wandered through her mage circuits, blood, and muscles, all strengthened by the dragon factor, with every breath she took. Rin sat up from the bed and clenched her fist forcefully. The air crushed by Rin exploded from her hand. Then Rin closed her eyes and sensed her own state. After a moment, she opened her eyes, which had returned to their azure blue color, and murmured. So this is me after merging with the dragon factor. Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/tlscarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating. Thanks. Chapter 85, Rin's Greed and the Encounter Outside the Church. 1307 words. Da Vinci. Da Vinci, who was nearby finishing up after the surgery, heard Rin's call. She quickly put down the tablet in her hand and walked over to the surgical table where Rin was. You're awake. How do you feel? It's strange, an indescribable weird feeling. But now I don't have to worry about magical energy issues anymore. I should be able to use those trump card magecrafts of mine. Da Vinci paid more attention to the first half of what Rin said than the second half. A weird feeling. After thinking seriously for a moment, Da Vinci realized something and smashed her left fist into her open right palm. I understand. It must be because the level of the dragon factor you fused with is too high. You've inevitably developed certain dragon-like habits. Wait a moment, Rin. With that, Da Vinci turned and ran toward somewhere. Soon, Da Vinci came back to Rin carrying a box. Rin looked at Da Vinci in confusion, not understanding what she was trying to do. Then, the box was opened by Da Vinci. Rin couldn't help but gulp, and her pupils instantly turned golden upon seeing the items in the box. Da Vinci looked at Rin, who was staring blankly at the gems in the box, and nodded, confirming her guess. But suddenly, a massive force came as Rin could no longer endure the temptation of the jewels. She leaped from the bed and instantly tackled both the box and Da Vinci to the ground. Sitting on top of Da Vinci, Rin had a flushed face. She kept picking up the gems scattered on the floor and stuffing them into any place on her person that could hold a gem. Rin, you're so heavy. Let go of me quickly, I'm going to be crushed to death. It wasn't that Rin had suddenly become heavier, but because under the stimulation of the jewels, she had involuntarily activated the dragon factor. A massive amount of magical energy was being converted into her body. This magical energy was even so much that it affected Rin's weight, causing her weight to skyrocket at this moment. Hearing Da Vinci's cry, Rin came back to her senses. She first looked at herself, covered in gems, and then at the disheveled Da Vinci on the floor. Her cheeks turned red, and she reached out to grab Da Vinci's neck, shouting, "Da Vinci, is this your so-called no side effects? Now I can't control myself as soon as I see a gem. How am I supposed to fight like this? Let go of me, cough cough cough." Da Vinci struggled to pry open Rin's hands, which were clutching her neck. "Don't get so excited, Rin. This is likely just because you've newly acquired the dragon factor and aren't used to it yet. Once you're familiar with it, you shouldn't have such a strong reaction. Of course. Rin, you have to believe me." Rin looked at the pitiful Da Vinci in front of her and slowly stood up from her, reaching out a hand to pull Da Vinci up while also smoothing Da Vinci's messy hair. "Da Vinci, if any more problems occur, I'll make you eat stargazy pie for a whole year. Do you understand? But Rin, are you a demon? A year of stargazy pie. How did you even think of that?" Rin turned her head away tsundere style, ignoring Da Vinci, and then carefully picked up the gems from her body and the floor, putting them into a box. "All right, it seems you weren't lying. I feel much better now than I did just a moment ago. Sorry, Da Vinci." Da Vinci looked at Rin, who was perfunctorily apologizing to her, and shrugged helplessly. "All right, Rin, since you're finished, stop disturbing my research. Sakura and Fujino are still waiting for you upstairs." Just as she was about to turn and leave, Rin suddenly remembered something and turned back to ask Da Vinci. I almost let you slip away. Did you fix the reality marble instrument I entrusted to you last time?" Da Vinci lowered her head guiltily, looking at her shoes, and answered in a small voice. "That, Rin, it's still missing a little bit. It's still not fixed." Da Vinci looked at Rin's fierce expression and crouched in a corner, trembling. "Rin, I was wrong. Don't hit me, I'll go fix it right away." "Fine, Da Vinci, fix it as soon as possible. I have a feeling we'll need it in this Holy Grail war." Fuyuki City Church. Archer was currently standing on a water tower not far from the church, monitoring it. Archer had already visited the house that should have been the Amiya residence, but the Fujimura nameplate hanging at the door made Archer realize just how different this world was from his own. Archer even wondered if the version of himself in this world had died during the Fourth War. Clinging to a final sliver of hope, Archer went to Hamurahara Academy. Taking advantage of the gap during the student's first period, he entered the archives. A name on the student registry caught Archer's eye, Shiro Kodomine. Realizing something, Archer then rushed to the church. However, sensing the presence of a servant within the church, he had to remain on the outskirts to monitor the interior. The me of this world was actually adopted by Kirai Kodomine. What a massive irony. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out from behind Archer. Archer keenly leaped down from the water tower to evade the shot, simultaneously manifesting his bow and swords. He drew his bow in midair and fired toward the dense forest where the gunshot originated. Grunting was launched from the bow, turning into a streak of red light that flew rapidly into the woods, constantly changing its trajectory to bypass trees. Assassin, wearing a red hood and a mask covering his face, calmly watched the sword speeding toward him. He unhurriedly put away his gun. Just as the sword was about to strike, Assassin vanished from the spot, and an oblivious ordinary person appeared in Assassin's previous position. Broken phantasm occurred, the massive explosion instantly swallowing the innocent civilian. Archer, possessing clairvoyance, also keenly captured this scene, and reacted instantly. Not good. As expected, the explosion just now drew the Lion King out of the church. At this moment, the Lion King was fully armored, riding Destria, and holding the Rangaminiad high as she charged toward Archer. Archer watched the Lion King charging at him, a drop of cold sweat unconsciously sliding down his temple. Hey, you've got to be kidding. A mere charge is actually whipping up a hurricane. The charging Lion King watched the servant getting closer and closer, leveled the Rangaminiad, and thrust it out with force. Archer held up the manifested twin swords, struggling to block the Lion King's spear. He was pushed back continuously by the massive impact, his legs plowing 2 furrows into the ground. At the same time, a massive storm followed the Lion King's attack, emitting from the Rhongomyniad and forming countless tiny wind blades that cut Archer. When the storm subsided, Archer leaped back to create distance from the Lion King, panting heavily. He casually threw the broken twin swords to the ground. "Can we stop? I'm a victim too. I was just attacked by assassin. And do you really intend to do battle in broad daylight? Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/TLScarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone, if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating, thanks. Chapter 86, Chapter 86, Shiro and Karen. 1285 words. The Lion King raised her visor and leaped from Destrier to the ground, holding her long spear with both hands, prepared to attack again. "Ghostly lurker outside the church, come. Fight me and show your valor. If you are worthy, I may consider letting you leave. Is a fight necessary?" Archer manifested the twin swords in his hands again, facing that familiar face with some helplessness. At that moment, Shiro Kotomine rushed out of the church, panting, and shouted at the Lion King. "Stop, Lancer!" Hearing Shiro Kotomine's call, the Lion King sighed helplessly and turned to say to Shiro Kotomine, "Master, when an enemy comes to the door, there is no reason not to fight." Archer saw the Lion King boldly turning her back to him. Seizing the opportunity, he cast a quick glance at Shiro Kotomine and disappeared into the woods beside the church after a few leaps back. "It seems whether it's Shiro Amiya or Shiro Kotomine, I'm always this naive." The Lion King also noticed Archer's retreat, and was about to pursue, but seeing Shiro Kotomine looking at her with a pleading face, she could only put away her armaments and lead Destrier back toward the church. "Let's go. Since the master's enemy has retreated, we shall leave this battle for another day." Shiro Kotomine was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly caught up with the Lion King. "Lancer, thank you." The Lion King looked at Shiro Kotomine, who had run to her side, and shook her head. "Master, being this naive won't do. I hope next time I engage an enemy, you won't stop me again. But Lancer, I hope to save everyone. Why must we fight?" At this time, Karen also arrived at the church entrance with Martha. "Oni-chan, do you really think so? If you only intended to save others, why did you participate in this Holy Grail war?" Karen looked at Shiro Kotomine, who couldn't explain himself for a long time, and spoke up. "Oni-chan, you understand too, right? If you want to save everything, you need power. Without power, what will you use to save others? So Oni-chan, think about it carefully." Karen then ignored Shiro Kotomine, who was frozen in place, and turned to follow the Lion King into the church with Martha. "Sorry, Lancer, my idiot brother has caused you trouble." "It's all right. Master's qualities are a rare sight to me as well. But Karen, is it really okay for you to be like this?" Martha also turned and said to Karen, "Karen, you like Shiro, don't you? Is it really okay to provoke him with words like that to make him change?" "It's fine. That idiot Oni-chan just needs to pursue his own dreams. No matter what he becomes, I will stay by his side. After all, he is my Oni-chan." "Ah, that's so nice. It seems Artoria and I will have to work hard too, right?" A slight smile appeared at the corner of the Lion King's mouth. "I certainly cannot let my subjects down." "Karen, don't push yourself, leave the master's wish to Martha and me." Karen smiled sweetly, like a narcissus blooming in midwinter, so clear and pure. "Lancer, ruler, thank you." At this moment, Shiro Kotomine, who had been stunned outside the door, snapped out of it from Karen's words and scratched his head somewhat awkwardly. "It seems I've been lectured by Karen again. I'm really an unqualified brother." In the church attic, Kirie Kotomine stood by the window, looking at Shiro Kotomine, who had a silly smile back on his face at the church entrance. He shook his head in disappointment, then picked up the list of church personnel, and continued revising it. "I must finish this quickly. My relationship with Shiro and Karen must not be discovered by the burial agency, otherwise they will certainly exploit it. In the outskirts of Fuyuki City, an uninvited guest arrived at the farm occupied by Lorelei. Lorelei held her black tea and looked at the blue-haired girl led in by the butler, letting out a bored yawn. Humph, what do you people intend to do by coming here? Seal, the seventh-ranked agent of the burial agency, looked at the rumored queen of the clock tower before her and curled her lip in disdain. The leader sent me to inform you that if you don't want an all-out war, withdraw from Fuyuki City. Simultaneously, the leader invites you to the neighboring Koba City for a discussion. Lorelei put down her teacup and raised a hand to stop her subordinates, who were restless and ready to attack Seal. You've got quite the nerve. Please pass a message to Narbalek and Malien Solomon for me. If they are looking to die, I welcome them to Fuyuki City anytime. All right, you may leave. Seal adjusted her glasses, silently bowed to Lorelei, and then turned to walk out of the farm. Lorelei watched Seal leave, a trace of mockery hanging at the corner of her mouth. Ignorant fools. Butler, please connect me to Rin's phone. It's time to join forces with Rin. The butler respectfully bowed to Lorelei, then picked up a vintage phone nearby and began dialing. Meanwhile, Seal, having walked out of the farm, pulled out a cell phone and dialed the number of Narbalek, the leader of the burial agency. Leader. Yes, you were right, she refused. Understood, I'm heading to Fuyuki Church now. Fuyuki Church. Having finished modifying the documents, Kirai Kotomine found Karen and Shiro Kotomine. He took out a set of keys and handed them over, then spoke up. Karen, Shiro, you need to leave the church now. I've received word that people from the burial agency will be arriving soon to take over. This is an old residence belonging to Taiga's family, you two stay there for the time being. Karen took the keys from Kirai Kotomine and gave him a surprised look. What's wrong with father? Karen knew the Kirai Kotomine before her all too well. According to his habits, shouldn't he wait for Shiro and me to clash with the burial agency, then show up to save us at our moment of crisis to pursue his so-called pleasure? Beside her, Shiro Kotomine said to Kirai Kotomine, Father, is it okay for you to stay here alone? Why don't you come over with us? Kirai Kotomine had a trace of a twisted smile on his face as he looked at Karen and Shiro, shaking his head. Depart now. Understanding Kirai Kotomine's personality, Shiro Kotomine said no more. He pulled Karen and quickly left the church, heading for the Fujimura residence. After leaving the church with Shiro Kotomine, Karen looked at him and spoke. Oni-chan, didn't you notice that father is very off? Isn't father always like this? Oni-chan, you really are a dense big idiot. After saying that, Karen turned her head away huffily and ignored Shiro Kotomine. Father, what are you thinking again? Kirai Kotomine silently disposed of the items and traces left behind by Shiro Kotomine and Karen in the church, waiting with anticipation for the personnel from the burial agency to arrive. Let me see if you are qualified to be servants of the Lord, ha 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 ha. I'm just greedy for the gender-bent protagonist's body. Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/TL Scarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone, if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating, thanks. Chapter 87, Church Q&A and Cooperation Reached. 1233 Word Seal looked at the destroyed road before her, and the traces of battle nearby, a hint of gravity appearing in her calm eyes. From the backpack she carried, which was treated with space magecraft, she took out a massive pile driver. This was the seventh holy scripture, created by Seal using the horn of the legendary soul-devouring unicorn as material. Seal slowly pushed open the doors of the Fuyuki City Church, scanning the surroundings warily. When she saw the collapsed pillars in the hall, she immediately went on high alert. Holding the seventh holy scripture in one hand, Seal grabbed her nun's habit with the other and stripped it off in an instant, revealing the combat attire beneath. At the same time, she casually took off her glasses and placed them on a nearby chair. Just then, the sound of faint footsteps came from behind her. Seal turned swiftly, aiming the seventh holy scripture at the church entrance. "Are you the seventh?" As the voice rang out, Seal finally saw the newcomer clearly and breathed a sigh of relief. She leaned the seventh holy scripture against a nearby bench, then picked up her nun's habit and pulled it back on right in front of the person. After Seal returned to her usual disguise and put away the seventh holy scripture, she slowly asked the newcomer, "Are you Kyrie Kodomine, the son of priest Risei?" After receiving Kyrie Kodomine's reply, Seal turned and pointed at the pillars, asking him, "What happened here? And outside? Your report didn't mention that this place had been attacked." Kyrie Kodomine's expression remained flat as he slowly delivered the excuse he had already fabricated. Shortly after the report was sent this morning, a pair of masters appeared near the church and engaged in combat. The marks outside were left by the servants' battle. As for this pillar, it was left by a certain master who came to threaten me after the battle ended. Seal furrowed her brows and couldn't help but comment. Those heretics rely on their servants and completely ignore the rules. After speaking, Seal looked at the son of priest Risei. His calm expression and poised demeanor greatly increased her favorable impression of this administrator of the Fuyuki City Church. "Father Kodomine, please prepare sufficient food and rooms. It is expected that a total of about 300 people from the burial agency and the heresy interrogation knights will arrive here shortly." "Understood." In a farm on the outskirts of Fuyuki City, Rin arrived with Gilgamesh after receiving notice from Lorelei. After politely thanking the butler who led the way, Rin exchanged a few words with Gilgamesh beside her, then pushed open the door and walked in. "Lorelei, long time no see. I didn't expect you to come to Fuyuki City too. Do you really intend to find trouble with Saggiamonica?" Lorelei put down her book, looked at the entering Rin, nodded slightly, and then gestured for Rin to take a seat. Once Rin was seated on the sofa beside Lorelei, Lorelei finally spoke. "I must repay the humiliation that Saggiamonica brought upon me." "Lorelei, I remember telling you, right? Facing Saggiamonica as you are now is suicide." Upon hearing Rin's merciless words, Lorelei's expression changed. Her magical energy unconsciously erupted, pressing toward Rin. Rin felt Lorelei's magical energy but looked at her with a relaxed face, completely unbothered. "You've grown stronger again, Rin." Lorelei withdrew her magical energy and continued. "That's why this time I've brought not only the choir but also the elites of the Department of Law. I've also recruited hundreds of magi looking to fish in troubled waters. With this power, I don't believe Saggiamonica can resist." "What if I say it's still not enough?" Lorelei's pupils shrank. "Still not enough? What does Rin mean?" "If these hundreds of magi strike together, even an ordinary magus would have to avoid their edge." "Why would Rin say that?" "Lorelei, what if I told you Saggiamonica is stronger than a magus, much stronger?" "That's impossible." "I'm sorry, but it's the reality. Now what do you plan to do?" Lorelei's brow furrowed as she fell into silence. At that moment, Gilgamesh's voice reached Rin's ears. "Poor little girl, being led by the nose by you. Rin, what are you plotting?" "How is this plotting? Saggiamonica is our enemy too. Now that Lorelei has brought this assistance to our door, how could I refuse?" "Ha ha 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 ha, Rin, you already have 30% of the elegance I saw. I look forward to your growth." "Gil, you're talking to yourself again. What exactly did you see?" "I cannot say, Rin. If I told you, your future self might change, ha 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 ha." After a long silence, Lorelei finally seemed to understand something and asked Rin with a calm face. "What do you want? Regardless of the outcome this time, I need you to owe me a favor in the future." Lorelei, who had been worried that Rin would demand an exorbitant price, breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing the condition. After her recent reflection, she finally understood Rin's goal. Rin was likely wary of Saggiamonica herself and wanted to cooperate. It should have been a win-win partnership, but because she lost the initiative at the start of the conversation, she ended up owing Rin a favor for nothing. Rin, you won this exchange. When you return to the clock tower, let's have a rematch. Having come to terms with it, Lorelei could only sigh. She stood up at the same time as Rin, and they shook hands, saying in unison, "Happy cooperating." In the sewers at the Fuyuki City estuary, Kiritsugu Amiya laid out the documents on the table one by one. An unknown archer who shoots with swords as arrows, a European knight suspected to be writer, and the master is Shiro Kotomine. Is this all the intel? Assassin nodded to Kiritsugu Amiya. Yes, however, master, I also sense that there should be hidden servants within the church at that time. Kiritsugu Amiya silently stacked the documents, put them into a file folder, and casually took a pack of cigarettes from his trench coat pocket, pulling one out and lighting it. Take me to see the magus you captured. Understood. Assassin led Kiritsugu Amiya through the complex sewers. A few minutes later, after climbing down a ladder, Kiritsugu Amiya saw a magus curled up in a small iron cage, his face full of terror. Kiritsugu Amiya walked up to the iron cage and looked at the magus inside, whose mage circuits were all destroyed and who was curled into a ball. A strange sense of familiarity welled up in his heart. He cast a peculiar look at the assassin beside him, then shook his head in self-denial. Impossible, how could a guy like me become a servant? Perhaps it's just that assassin's noble phantasm has an effect similar to my origin bullet. Then Kiritsugu Amiya stared expressionlessly at the magus in the cage and asked, "Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/tlscarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone, if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating, thanks." Chapter 88, The Prelude to Monika's Plan. The Crisis of Fuyuki City. 1,380 words. In the Fuyuki City food street, Gudako was eating the fried noodles in front of her with a look of bliss. "Uncle Shinji, it's been so long since I've eaten something this delicious." The adult version of Shinji looked at Gudako with a smile, and casually pushed his untouched food toward her. "Eat more if you like it." In Chaldea's environment these past few years, this kind of food is rare. Gudako unceremoniously pulled adult Shinji's food toward herself and continued eating heartily. After finishing the meal, while walking through the busy streets of Fuyuki City, Gudako turned to adult Shinji and asked, "Uncle Shinji, are you really not going to eat anything? You didn't seem to eat a thing just now." Adult Shinji shook his head, then reached out with a cold hand to rub Gudako's head. "This body of mine hasn't needed food for a long time. I've gotten used to it over the years." "All right, Gudako, let's hurry to the final battlefield and get ready. We'll be busy for the next few days." Hearing adult Shinji's words, Gudako snapped her heels together, stood tall, and gave adult Shinji a standard military salute. Mission guaranteed to be completed. "But Uncle Shinji, can I still eat some of the local delicacies here over the next few days?" Adult Shinji smiled slightly. "Of course you can." Hearing this, Gudako jumped up and down in excitement. "Uncle Shinji, you're spoiling Gudako too much. If elder sister finds out, she'll definitely be unhappy." "Olga Marie, it's fine. Rin won't say anything over such a small matter." "Fine, but remember to use an honorific with me. I am the vice director now." "You and Gudako move quickly, understood?" Yes, Lady Vice Director." After adult Shinji spoke, he casually turned off the communicator by his ear and then, with a smile, headed toward the destination with Gudako. Meanwhile, Shiro Kotomine and Karen arrived at the Fujimura Taiga old residence and opened the door with a key. However, upon entering the garden, both Shiro Kotomine and Karen were stunned. "Sister Taiga, why are you here?" Fujimura Taiga turned her head to look at Shiro Kotomine and Karen as they walked in. She raised her left arm high and gave them a calm greeting. Karen looked at Fujimura Taiga, walked over angrily, stood on her tiptoes, and pulled Fujimura Taiga's ear. "Sister Taiga, didn't I tell you to take your family and leave Fuyuki City during these few days? Why haven't you left yet?" "Ah, let go of me first, Karen, my ear is going to break." Karen then let go of Fujimura Taiga, who rubbed her ear while hissing in pain. "Speak up, Sister Taiga." Fujimura Taiga looked sheepishly at Karen, the person she had been afraid of since they met. "Didn't I just miss you guys? So I came back, ha 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 ha." Karen looked at the clowning Fujimura Taiga, and reached out to pinch her ear again. Scared, Fujimura Taiga ran behind Shiro Kotomine, screaming to escape Karen's harassment. "Shiro, save me. Karen is going to kill me." To Fujimura Taiga's surprise, Shiro Kotomine didn't help her this time. Instead, he said to her seriously, "Sister Taiga, Fuyuki City really is dangerous right now. You shouldn't have come back. Karen and I will escort you out of the city in a moment." Suddenly, Martha manifested her form, and looked up at the sky. "Karen, Shiro, it seems it's too late." Karen and Shiro Kotomine also looked up. With the help of magical energy, they both sensed a massive boundary surrounding the entire Fuyuki City. The church team that had just entered the Fuyuki City area suddenly felt a surge of magical energy, and immediately went on alert. Then, a massive boundary rose from behind the team, covering the entire Fuyuki City. Malian Solomon looked at the leader of the burial agency, Narbalek, and said, "What a grand welcoming ceremony. Just small tricks from the heretics." Suddenly, the boundary trembled and a massive amount of magical energy emanated from it. A sense of dizziness rose in everyone's hearts. Then, those with magical energy sensed that the space seemed to have changed. Those who understood what this meant felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. Narbalek looked at the boundary behind them, which had changed again, with a grim expression. "How is it possible? It seems the entire city, along with the underground ley lines and the land, has been transferred to a different dimension." Just moments ago, Lorelei, having reached a cooperation with Rin, brought Rin to the command room. After explaining her plan in detail to Rin, she ignored Rin's objections and forcibly ordered her subordinates to activate the boundary they had been setting up. Ley line link. Nodes operating normally. Magical energy circulation good. Lorelei looked at the annoyed Rin beside her and nodded proudly. "Look, Rin. Once the boundary is complete, I guarantee not even a fly will escape Fuyuki City." "Fine, do whatever you want. I can't be bothered with you. Just notify me when you're ready to act." Humph. Tohsaka Rin snorted coldly, turned, and walked out of the command room. At this moment, the butler walked up to Lorelei and asked in a lowered voice, "Little miss, is it really okay to ignore Tohsaka Rin's objections like this?" Lorelei, who had just suffered a setback at the hands of Tohsaka Rin, and felt she had just scored one back against her, how could she possibly care about Tohsaka Rin's opinion? With pride carved into her very bones, Lorelei waved her hand dismissively at the butler. "Don't worry about it. That girl Tohsaka Rin has lived with ordinary people for too long and cares too much about them." Suddenly, the alarm in the command room sounded, and on the magic projected map of Fuyuki City in front of them, nodes were constantly turning red. Not good. Someone is seizing control of the barrier. Lorelei frowned, walked quickly to the map, watched the nodes turning red, turned, and shouted to the magus beside her. "Contact the scene immediately and ask what on earth is going on." The magus beside her immediately put down the mystic code used to operate the barrier, chanted incessantly, and then the scene and sound from one of the nodes appeared out of thin air in the command room. As soon as the feed connected, they only heard a scream, and then everyone in the command room saw a servant who looked somewhat similar to the astronomy branch Lord Marisberry casually unleashing one spell after another, spells that an ordinary magus would struggle to reach in a lifetime, slaughtering the magi present. "A servant!" Lorelei shouted in a low voice, then stared at the screen with a frown, intending to figure out why the servant was seizing the barrier. At this moment, a figure that was unforgettable to Lorelei appeared on the screen. Sagia Monica walked into the frame happily with Dr. Heartless. Lorelei looked at Sagittarius Monica on the screen, gritted her teeth, and clenched her fists until they creaked. Lady Monica, the nodes previously arranged on the ley lines have all been activated, and these key nodes have also been cleared. Sagittarius Monica ignored Dr. Heartless and, as if she had known beforehand, turned her head to look at the screen. It seems Rin-chan isn't here. But I still want to thank everyone for your help, you've saved me quite a bit of time. After saying this, a burst of light emitted from Sagittarius Monica's chest, and then the screen distorted and disappeared. At the same time, the barrier transformed in that instant, space was severed, and the entire Fuyuki city was relocated by Monica to some different space. Lorelei slammed her fist onto the table, smashing it into a pile of splintered wood, and shouted through gritted teeth. Sagittarius Monica. I hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/TL Scarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone, if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating, thanks. Chapter 89, Kiritsugu Amiya's Actions and Ilya. 1292 words. At this time, having left the farm and strolling along a small path in the suburbs, Tohsaka Rin glanced at the barrier, then turned her head to ask Gilgamesh, who had manifested and was following behind her. Gil, can you break it? Gilgamesh looked at the barrier with contempt, crossed his arms, and said, Tohsaka Rin, are you spouting nonsense? Don't act like those mongrels and say stupid things. Well, my mistake. You are a magnanimous person, please forgive me. Watching Tohsaka Rin acting cute in front of him, Gilgamesh turned his head away and let out a sound. But Gil, even with your clairvoyance combined with Sha Nakba and Muru, you can't rival Sagittarius Monica's omniscience. That mongrel is indeed, as you said, the princess of the root. My clairvoyance has been almost completely blocked, I can only see a small portion of information. I fear that only you, of all people, can break her omniscience and let things develop in unexpected ways, just as even my clairvoyance, when combined with Sha Nakba and Muru, cannot fully predict your actions. Forget it. I don't have a good plan right now either. Gil, let's go back. Gilgamesh nodded at Tohsaka Rin, then lightly waved his arm backward. A golden ripple appeared behind Gilgamesh, and a golden spacecraft emerged behind him. It was the Vimana. Tohsaka Rin followed Gilgamesh onto the Vimana, stood beside the throne in the center of the Vimana, and held onto the back of the throne. Seeing that Tohsaka Rin was ready, Gilgamesh moved his mind, and the Vimana slowly rose into the sky, flying steadily toward the Tohsaka Annex. At the Tohsaka Annex, the King of Conquerors was focused on playing a game against Fujino. Even though Waver, who was extremely anxious because of the sudden appearance of the barrier, spoke up several times, he could not sway the King of Conquerors, who was in the middle of the game. Checkmate. The King of Conquerors laughed loudly, looked at Fujino, whom he had checkmated on the board, and nodded with satisfaction. Young lady, not bad. To think you could hold out against me for so long, your strategy is worthy of praise. Are you interested in joining my ranks? Fujino glared at the King of Conquerors, unconvinced. The only one I will follow is my master, everyone else can just die. Ha 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 ha, so you are Tohsaka Rin's disciple. You are truly worthy of being called Little Mississippi. At this moment, Waver spoke again to the King of Conquerors. Outside. Waver, who had spoken again, was once more interrupted by the King of Conquerors. The King of Conquerors stood up, patted Waver on the shoulder, and patted all of Waver's subsequent words back into his stomach. Waver, we all know about what's happening outside. Look at these young ladies, summon your courage. As my subject, how can you be so flustered over such a small matter? Waver turned his head to look at Sakura and Gray, who were expressionless on the side, took a deep breath, and calmed his heart. Very good, Waver, that's more like it, ha 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 ha. But King, are we really going to ignore the barrier outside? The King of Conquerors rubbed his chin, pondered for a while, and said. At the moment, we know nothing about the situation outside. Let's wait until that little girl Tohsaka Rin returns. At night, Kiritsugu Amiya and Zoken Mato, with their servants, slowly passed through the dense forest and arrived at the gate of the Einsburn castle. He, Amiya, have you really made up your mind? Kiritsugu Amiya did not answer Zoken Mato's words, but instead looked at Ilya, who was slowly appearing in front of the castle gate with Berserker. Kiritsugu, have you finally come to see me? Kiritsugu, why didn't you come back to find me? Do you know how grandfather treated me? Do you know how much I missed you and mom? Kiritsugu Amiya looked at Ilya, who was excitedly throwing one question after another at him, with a calm expression. The excited Ilya spoke quieter and quieter. At this moment, Ilya also noticed the determination hidden within Kiritsugu Amiya's calm expression. She calmed her excited emotions, looked at Kiritsugu Amiya in front of her, and said coldly, Kiritsugu, did you come to find me now for the Lesser Grail? Upon hearing Kiritsugu Amiya's resolute response, although she was mentally prepared, Ilya still couldn't help but take a step back. Then, with tears in the corners of her eyes, she shouted, Berserker! Berserker, who should have had no reason, seemed to feel Ilya's sad emotions and let out an unprecedented roar. The huge roar shook the mountains and forests, and countless birds fled one after another. Berserker, wielding the nameless axe sword in his hand, launched an attack on Kiritsugu Amiya, with an unstoppable momentum and unprecedented fury. Jalter, who was behind Zoken Mato, waved her battle flag, leaped out, and blocked Berserker. And Kiritsugu Amiya, without hesitation, ordered Assassin. Assassin, bring Ilya to me. Seeing the disappearing assassin, Berserker roared. Ignoring the battle flag thrust by Jalter, he risked having his arm stabbed and fiercely punched Jalter, sending her flying. Then, he frantically rushed to Ilya's side before Assassin could appear next to her. Berserker hugged Ilya, using his broad back to block the throwing knives thrown by Assassin. However, Assassin's noble phantasm, mysterious severance, was not something that could be easily tanked. As the flying knives stabbed into Berserker's back, a violent pain surged through Berserker's entire body. Berserker, even in the intense pain, still displayed his invincible martial prowess. He gently placed Ilya on the ground, then pushed off with his legs, performed a backflip to get in front of Assassin, and threw a punch. Damn beast, don't forget me. Countless serrated spears, accompanied by flames, struck Berserker, almost burning Berserker into a charred lump. Even though Berserker was so severely injured, he still mustered his last breath to throw this punch. However, due to his excessive injuries, this punch was easily dodged by Assassin. Assassin, while Berserker is recovering, go and capture Ilya immediately. Upon hearing Kiritsugu Amiya's order, Assassin flashed in front of Ilya, shrugged at Ilya, and then reached out, intending to grab Ilya. Suddenly, Assassin felt something, quickly retracted his outstretched hand, and then leaped backward, avoiding a noble phantasm flying from afar. It's so lively here. I wonder if you all welcome me. Everyone looked up toward the source of the voice. At this time, Tohsaka Rin and Gilgamesh, operating the Vimana, appeared above the castle. Kiritsugu Amiya's pupils contracted, and he couldn't help but say, Tohsaka Rin. Zoken Mato's face also rarely showed an expression of anger as he looked at Tohsaka Rin in the sky. Tohsaka Rin. Why are you here? So you really didn't die, Elder Mato, I'm just reciprocating the courtesy. You sent people to destroy my home, so I came over to give you trouble. It's very fair. At this moment, Black Saber, who had arrived at the Tohsaka residence only to find it empty, pursed her lips and casually destroyed the Tohsaka residence with an Excalibur. TCH, disgusting old man, to actually deceive this king. Where is there an opponent here that can satisfy this king? Damn it, when I go back, I must make him double the tribute. Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/TL Scarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone, if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating, thanks. Chapter 90, Engramenyu reappears and Kiritsugu's retreat. 1202 words. Tohsaka Rin stood on the Vimana, looking down at the people below, and then waved at Gilgamesh. "Gil, please. To think I have to let that damn deity touch my treasure Tohsaka Rin, this is only for this one time. Mongrels below, feel honored for this." After speaking, a golden ripple appeared behind Gilgamesh, and a small hand axe shot out from the ripple. Berserker blankly caught the small hand axe that shot toward him, then held up this small hand axe that was not even the size of his palm, and let out a roar toward the Vimana in the sky, as if saying, "Are you kidding me? Gil, what are you doing? Don't be anxious, it will change." As Gilgamesh's voice fell, the axe in Berserker's hand instantly became huge, becoming very suitable for Berserker to use. However, as the axe became larger, the image of a huge cherry tree appeared behind Berserker. Tohsaka Rin was stunned as she looked at the huge phantom of the cherry tree, and immediately, she remembered something and couldn't help but shout. "Falling cherry divine axe." Berserker didn't care about these things. He seemed very satisfied with the axe that suddenly appeared in his hand, and let out an excited roar. Then, with a stride, he rushed to the vicinity of Jalter and slashed down, axe after axe. On the other side, Tohsaka Rin and Gilgamesh also nimbly leaped down from the Vimana, and landed beside Kiritsugu Amiya. "Kiritsugu Amiya, are you not retreating yet? Do you have any other trump cards?" Kiritsugu Amiya first glanced at Assassin, who was being aimed at by dozens of noble phantasms from Gilgamesh, then turned his head to look at Tohsaka Rin, and slowly stated, "It's meaningless. Since you have already come, then I should have no chance of escaping." Upon hearing Kiritsugu Amiya's words, Tohsaka Rin frowned. "That's not right. How could this guy Kiritsugu Amiya know how to give up? They must still have a trump card." Suddenly, Gilgamesh picked up Rin and leaped onto the castle tower, avoiding the sudden surge of black mud. "Rin Tohsaka, ha 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 ha. Rin Tohsaka, it really is you. I'm going to kill you. I must kill you." Standing on the tower, Rin looked down at the suddenly appearing Ngramenu. She then bolstered her eyes with magical energy and glanced at Zokenmeta below. As expected, she found command spells on both of Zokenmeta's hands. It seemed Ngramenu had signed a contract with him as a servant. He, Rin Tohsaka. How do you plan to choose in this situation?" Rin grinned as she looked at the gloating Zokenmeta below, then turned to Gilgamesh. "Gil, I'll leave it to you to pin them down. Ngramenu is mine." With that, Rin leaped from the tower. Her eyes instantly turned gold, and a terrifying magical energy surged with her breath. In a flash, Rin entered starlight mode, firing countless beams of light at Ngramenu. Jalter used her war banner to block a swing from Berserker's axe, then twisted her waist and kicked Berserker away. With a few agile leaps, she landed beside Zokenmeta. Jalter watched Ngramenu, who was screaming under the bombardment of Rin's magic, and spoke to Zokenmeta. "Let's retreat. Let this disgusting guy cover our rear. Since the Saintess does not wish to fight, then we shall retreat, Kiritsugu." Kiritsugu Amiya nodded. A stroke of the command spells on the back of his hand vanished, and after strengthening Assassin, he threw a smoke bomb without hesitation, disappearing into the smoke along with Zokenmeta. Jalter, seeing the pursuing Berserker, did not linger. She unleashed her noble phantasm without hesitation, creating a wall of fire to block Berserker. She then nodded to Assassin and vanished into the woods with a few leaps. Seeing that his master and Jalter had fully retreated, Assassin threw a barrage of daggers at Gilgamesh, then brandished his knives and charged toward him. Seeing that Assassin still dared to resist, Gilgamesh unleashed the Gate of Babylon without hesitation, and a golden downpour reappeared in Fuyuki City. Scapegoat. Facing the downpour of Gilgamesh's noble phantasms, Assassin activated his innate ability without hesitation. Scapegoat swapped his position with Ngramenu, leaving Ngramenu to face the golden rain while he took the brunt of Rin's magic. Assassin then endured Rin's magic and quickly retreated into the forest, disappearing from sight. With all his allies gone, black mud continued to pour from Ngramenu, swallowing the noble phantasms embedded in his body as he stubbornly launched an attack at Rin. "Rin Tohsaka, I will definitely kill you." They all got away, leaving us with this troublesome piece of rotten meat." As she spoke, the light wings behind Rin flapped, and she rapidly ascended to avoid the surging waves of mud. At the same time, she pulled out a shorthand codex filled with runic script and poured her magical energy into it without hesitation. "I've been wanting to do this. Great God Crest." At the cost of an entire shorthand codex filled with runic script and a massive amount of magical energy, Rin instantly activated a spell comparable to a C-rank noble phantasm release. Countless runic characters were imbued with various attributes by the shorthand codex and combined into a giant crest. It reached Ngramenu in the blink of an eye, followed by a massive explosion. Blown into a puddle of black mud, Ngramenu stubbornly reformed his body and emerged from the muck once more. However, the moment he appeared, Ngramenu was cleaved in half by Berserker's axe, followed by another wave of Rin's magic, and a beam of light fired from a noble phantasm by Gilgamesh. Ilya stood to the side, watching them take turns ravaging Ngramenu. Shivering, she prepared to slip away. After brutally pummeling Ngramenu for a while, Rin turned around just in time to see Ilya carrying luggage and trying to sneak toward the castle's back door with two maids. Rin smiled slightly. Her light wings flapped, and she instantly appeared in front of Ilya, blocking her path. Sela and Lacerit saw Rin descending from the sky. They drew their giant halberds and shielded Ilya behind them, shouting, "Run, miss!" The two sisters then swung their halberds down at Rin without hesitation. Rin calmly applied reinforcement magic while two defensive magic circles appeared on her arms, easily blocking their attacks. With a backhand swipe, she snatched the two halberds away and tossed them aside. "Wait, I'm not here for Ilya's lesser grail. I'm here to find a partner. Ilya, are you willing?" Looking at Rin, who was standing before her with knuckles cracking, Ilya nodded without a moment's hesitation. "Very well then, Ilya. We are allies now. How about lending me your castle for a while? Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/TLScarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating. Thanks. Chapter 91, Rin's first robbery, the Heartless Lion King. 1370 words. On the outskirts of Fuyuki City, a depressed Sela led Rin through the castle as she scavenged every piece of jewelry she took a fancy to. After finishing her sweep, Rin followed Sela to the main hall. Seeing Ngramenu imprisoned within the temple, she gave a light chuckle and walked up to the magic circle of the temple's ritual. "How does it feel? Now that your contract has been severed, you probably won't have another chance to come out and cause trouble. Do you have any thoughts?" "Rin Tohsaka. I'll kill you. I'll definitely kill you. It seems you've lost your mind. But I'm afraid you won't get the chance. Let's go, Ilya." Rin then ignored the roaring Ngramenu and led Ilya and the others slowly out of the castle. Walking at the back, Sela crept up to Berserker and asked Ilya, who was sitting on Berserker's shoulder, "Miss, are we really going to listen to that robber?" Ilya looked at her lively maid with a smirk. It seems Sela is very dissatisfied with Rin Tohsaka's looting. "Sela, can we resist? Sela, are you willing to die before your wish is fulfilled?" "I am not. Neither am I. I must know why Kiritsugu became like this. So I cannot die yet." "I understand." Mississippi. Walking ahead, Rin occasionally stopped to take out jewelry she had scavenged from the castle to admire, prompting Gilgamesh to speak up. "Rin, why do you care about such trash?" "Gil, these are the most beautiful treasures in this world. Look at this color, look at this texture." Hearing Rin's words, a vein popped on Gilgamesh's forehead. He casually summoned a fist-sized crystal and tossed it into Rin's arms. "Didn't I already give you a third of the wealth in my treasury?" Rin caught the crystal Gilgamesh threw. Her eyes glazed over as she swallowed hard. Then, shaking herself out of the trance induced by the crystal's luster, she wiped the drool from the corner of her mouth and asked, Is my current self different from the future you saw? Gilgamesh looked Rin over carefully. Suddenly noticing the faint golden light in her eyes, he seemed to understand something. You are currently far too unskilled at controlling the dragon factor. Perhaps once you become proficient, you will become the person I remember. Rin was stunned. The golden light in her eyes instantly dissipated. Freed from the greed brought by the dragon factor, she turned beet red as she thought of her embarrassing behavior just now and shouted in grief and indignation. Damn you, Da Vinci! I'm going to slaughter you. In the laboratory, Da Vinci was focused on repairing equipment when she suddenly sneezed, snapping a pipe she had just reconnected. A look of total dejection instantly washed over her face. Why did I sneeze all of a sudden? These last 2 hours of work were all for nothing. In the doll factory in Fuyuki City, Aoko was looking at Tuko with anger, as her sister was blocking her way. Tuko, why are you stopping me? If we don't break the barrier, most of the hundreds of thousands of people in Fuyuki City will probably die here. Beside her, Alice, holding her mystic code, also looked at Tuko with confusion, waiting for an explanation. Tuko didn't say a word. She simply took out a gem and played an image stored within it. After the image finished playing, Aoko looked at Tuko with some dejection and asked. Tuko, is there really no other way? Tuko shook her head, pulled out a cigarette, lit it and spoke. The combination of Saggio Monica, who is directly connected to the root, and the King of Magic, Solomon, would be difficult to defeat even if we gathered all the power in Fuyuki City right now, let alone in this chaotic situation. Unless we could get Shiki here, though if it were that Shiki, it's hard to say who she would help. Aoko ruffled her hair in frustration, then snatched the cigarette from Tuko's hand and took a deep drag. Cough, cough, cough. Tuko found it somewhat amusing to see Aoko choking on the smoke. She gently patted Aoko's back and then took the cigarette back. Aoko, if it's really that hard, let's just get drunk. It seems we've never actually had a drink together. At that moment, Alice spoke up with a hint of hesitation. Maybe I can. Hearing Alice's words, Aoko excitedly moved in front of her. But just as Aoko was about to speak, Tuko instantly doused her with cold water. Are you talking about the bridge giant? But Alice, we have no materials right now, and you can't provide the magical energy needed for the final stage of the bridge giant. It can't be done. Alice shook her head at Tuko. No, Tuko, you forgot about Sakura. You told me that Sakura's origin has awakened, and it's the origin of emotions. If I can help Sakura master her origin in a short time, and then combine our powers, we can manifest it. As for the materials, Rin, who summoned the oldest king, should be able to help us solve that. The Fujimura residence. Shiro Kotomine was busy in the kitchen, rapidly producing one delicious dish after another. However, faced with the bottomless pit that was the Lion King's stomach, Shiro Kotomine struggled to keep up even though he was drenched in sweat and his limbs were weak. By now, Fujimura Taiga, who had learned part of the truth about the world from Karen, was staring dumbfoundedly at this legendary king of knights. You didn't become king just because you can eat, did you? Martha joked along as well. No, she became this hungry because she became a king. An ordinary family could never afford to feed someone with that kind of appetite. Faced with Fujimura Taiga's question and Martha's teasing, the Lion King involuntarily slowed her eating, and her face turned slightly red. Normally, with her temperament, she would have slammed the table and stood up, but facing such delicious food, the Lion King really didn't want to waste time. Suddenly, the sound of breaking dishes came from the side. Everyone turned to look and found that Shiro Kotomine had collapsed to the ground from exhaustion, knocking over a stack of bowls. The Lion King quickly stuffed the last bit of food from her bowl into her stomach, then awkwardly moved to Shiro Kotomine's side. She watched as Martha treated him, staring down at Shiro with a hint of guilt. Karen looked up at the Lion King with some displeasure. Oniai-chan worked himself to exhaustion for her, and she doesn't even have a word of thanks. This person. Of course, Karen didn't know that the king of night summoned by Shiro Kotomine using Grey's blood was a heroic spirit of heaven from another timeline. She was one who had personally reclaimed the holy spear at the hill of Camlin and returned to the earth, yet failed to die when she should have. As a result, she became a wandering ghost holding the holy spear, eventually becoming deified by it. In theory, the deified Lion King should have almost no emotions or humanity. As a divine spirit, she should be dominated by the holy spear. However, because she was not the original body but had manifested as a servant, she had been affected by Grey's blood, thus acquiring a portion of humanity and emotion. Karen naturally wouldn't know all this. However, although Martha had lost most of the abilities of the ruler class, she still retained the true name discernment skill. Knowing the Lion King's origins, Martha quickly held back Karen, who was about to snap, and shook her head. Her Majesty the Lion King is heartless. You should help Shiro to his room to rest. Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon.com/TL Scarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone, if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating. Thanks. Chapter 92, Fuyuki City in Chaos, the Lion King strikes. 1,291 words. Early the next morning, the entire Fuyuki City was already in a state of total chaos. News of yesterday's strange phenomena had spread throughout the city. Now, the vast majority of ordinary citizens knew that Fuyuki City was completely cut off from the outside world. Since last night, looting of daily necessities had begun within the city, and with the sunrise, it had only intensified. The entire city looked like a scene from the apocalypse. Meanwhile, the Magi and church personnel, who had originally hidden in the shadows, no longer cared about the principle of secrecy. They began to walk and fight openly on the streets. An explosion occurred on the second floor of a department store in downtown Fuyuki. Magi on the periphery of the mall cast aside their disguises and began clearing out the panicked citizens without mercy. Meanwhile, on the second floor, several Magi took turns casting spells, engaging in a fierce battle with agents who had also come to procure supplies. Facing an incoming fireball, an agent nimbly hid behind a display counter. After nodding to his nearby companions, he pulled out black keys, leaned out from one side of the counter, and threw them at the surrounding Magi without hesitation. The Magus in the lead saw the incoming black keys and casually swung a metal rod parrying them. Then, activating reinforcement magic, he made a great leap and smashed the shelf to pieces with all his might. A female agent took advantage of the moment the Magus's vision was obscured by flying goods. She forcefully tore off her nun's habit and threw it toward him. Then, completely unconcerned, the agent followed closely behind the flying habit in her underwear, launching an attack on the Magus. The Magus indeed fell for it. With his eyes obscured by the flying goods, he only saw a shadow of the habit through the gaps and swung his rod without hesitation. The female agent seized that split second to close in, pressing against the Magus's body and plunging a black key into his chest without hesitation. The Magus's companion also discovered this Magus's miserable state and shouted in grief and indignation. Then, along with the other Magi, they began using large-scale magecraft without hesitation, starting to clear the area. Such scenes began to appear frequently within Fuyuki City. The hatred accumulated over generations between the Mages Association and the church began to erupt continuously in this now isolated Fuyuki City. Shiro Kotomine, who had originally intended to take Karen out shopping, gritted his teeth as he looked at the mall that had become a battlefield, his fists clenching until they creaked. Shiro Kotomine's angry roar could not stop these Magi, who were clearing out ordinary people. Oni-chan, if you want to do it, just do it. Shiro Kotomine looked at the calm-faced Karen beside him, then spoke to the air at his side. Lancer, please stop them. Following Shiro Kotomine's words, the Lion King appeared, riding Destria. With a wave of the long spear in her hand, a massive storm emerged, blowing the Magi, who ignored Shiro Kotomine, into disarray. It's a servant. Retreat quickly. Seeing the servant appear, the Magi, who knew the strength of servants in the Fuyuki Holy Grail War, abandoned their companions still fighting in the mall, and turned without hesitation to flee into the nearby alleys. Suddenly, the explosions in the mall ceased. The agent from earlier, left with only her undergarments, seemed as if she had been hit by a truck. She crashed through the third-floor glass and fell, covered in wounds, in front of Shirokoto Mine. The female agent covered her mouth, which was vomiting blood, and struggled to stand up from the ground. Having lost her mind to the killing frenzy, the agent glared with hateful eyes at Karen and Shirokoto Mine, then raised her black keys to strike at Shirokoto Mine. Karen looked at the dumbstruck Shirokoto Mine beside her, grabbed him without hesitation, turned, and left the street, while saying to the Lion King, "Lancer, I leave the rest here to you." Karen pulled the dazed Shirokoto Mine to a street not far from the mall. "Oni-chan, do you understand now?" Shirokoto Mine recalled the scene just now, and memories from his childhood flashed through his mind, the struggling crowds, the towering inferno, how similar they were to what he saw today. Then Shirokoto Mine looked up at the thick smoke rising everywhere in the city, clenched his fists tightly, and nodded firmly at Karen. "Karen, thank you." In the courtyard of the Tohsaka Annex, Rin stood there, watching the smoke-filled city in the distance. Rin understood that these were the Magi under Lorelei, starting to search for Monika's tracks. However, thinking of the innocent ordinary people, she hesitated and turned to ask Gilgamesh. "Gil, is it wrong for me to just ignore this?" Gilgamesh was lying lazily on a chair in the garden, holding a glass of red wine, sipping it carefully, and then looked at Rin in surprise. "Rin, are you a savior? Or are you an ally of justice? Or are you already strong enough to dictate everything? Right now, you should be concerned about how to defeat those mongrels." Rin understood that Gilgamesh was not wrong. She was neither a savior nor an ally of justice, nor was she strong enough to dictate everything. But looking at Fuyuki City, which had become a battlefield, her heart was still filled with unbearable sadness. Gilgamesh seemed to have guessed Rin's thoughts. He stood up from the chair, slowly walked to Rin's side, opened a golden ripple, summoned a golden cup filled with fine wine from it, and placed it in Rin's hand. "Drink up. Didn't you have your sister and disciple a company that wished to seek a way to solve this barrier? Trust them. Although I think you are just doing something unnecessary. Gil, breaking the barrier isn't just about simple destruction, it also requires restraining Sagiu Monica and her servant." After saying this, Rin lowered her head, looked at the pale golden liquid in the golden cup in her hand, hesitated for a moment, then raised the cup and drank it all in one gulp. After finishing the fine wine, Rin, with a slightly flushed face, and a hint of drunkenness, casually threw the golden cup on the ground and said to Gilgamesh, "Gil, I'm really annoyed right now. Let's go find those mongrel servants and kill them." Gilgamesh was stunned, then laughed out loud, casually summoning the Vimana to take Rin flying toward the city. "Ha ha ha ha, that's the spirit." Having said this, Gilgamesh sat on the throne of the Vimana, supporting his cheek with one hand, and muttered to himself, "Very good, Rin. You are worthy of being the friend who fought alongside me against the gods. This time, let me accompany you in turning everything upside down." Rin, sensing something, turned her head to look at Gilgamesh sitting on the throne. However, because the wind was too loud, she did not hear Gilgamesh's muttering clearly, and could only look at him with confusion. The Lion King casually threw the corpse of the Magus impaled on her spear to the side, then lowered her visor, looked up at the golden light point approaching in the sky, and surging battle intent erupted from her body. Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/TL Scarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone, if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating. Thanks. Chapter 93. Chapter 93. St. George Sanctuary. 1453 words. The Vimana slowly landed in front of the Lion King. Rin looked at the Lion King before her, thinking with slight confusion, is this guy the Lion King, or Artoria Lancer? However, feeling the surging battle intent on the opponent and considering the purpose of her trip, she knew she had to fight regardless. Rin and Gilgamesh stepped off the Vimana, which then turned into a cluster of light points and returned to Gilgamesh's treasury. Gil, it seems there is an opponent worthy of you taking action. Gilgamesh looked at the Lion King before him with a frivolous expression. As Shah Nakba Imuru activated, all the intelligence on the Lion King was fully obtained by Gilgamesh. Ha 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 ha, another mongrel calling herself a king, and a deity at that. Ha 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 ha, die, mongrel. Hundreds of golden ripples emerged from behind Gilgamesh, marking the beginning of this battle. The Lion King lightly pulled the reins, manipulating Destrier, and nimbly dodged and maneuvered through the golden downpour. Rin, on the side, was not idle either. She kept chanting sacred songs. As Rin chanted, immense magical power emanated from her, and then she slowly floated off the ground, watching the Lion King, who was locked in a fierce battle with Gilgamesh, with an expressionless face. While dodging the downpour of Gilgamesh's noble phantasm, the Lion King was not idle. She continuously released fierce winds, forming wind blades that attacked Gilgamesh, forcing him, who did not want to move, to summon multiple shield noble phantasms in front of him. Seizing the moment Gilgamesh summoned the shields, the Lion King leaped from Destrier, and thrust down with Rangaminiad in her hand without hesitation. Seeing the holy spear thrusting toward him, Gilgamesh was indifferent, continuing to fire his noble phantasms while whispering. Rin, who was keeping guard and floating in midair, murmured, "St. George Sanctuary, Dragon Breath." At this moment, the magic circle in Rin's eyes unfolded, forming two massive magic circles about 2 meters in size. With the appearance of the magic circles, space seemed to crack as well. A beam of dazzling white light shot out instantly from the spatial rift in front of Rin, colliding with the Lion King's Rangaminiad. The moment the Lion King's Rangaminiad collided with Dragon Breath, she felt a massive force, which forcibly terminated her thrusting motion. Moreover, Gilgamesh's noble phantasms reached the Lion King's side at that very instant. Seeing that she was about to be hit by the noble phantasms, the Lion King exerted force in her arm, deflecting the trajectory of the dragon breath released by Rin. The deflected dragon breath instantly knocked away the noble phantasms attacking the Lion King, but as the dragon breath was deflected, a large area of the ground was also destroyed. As the ground was destroyed by dragon breath, the Lion King, caught off guard, was struck on the shoulder by feathers of light. Feeling the heavy blow, the Lion King flexibly avoided the incoming noble phantasms and pulled away. After pulling away, the Lion King covered her shoulder, looking with a grim expression at the feathers of light slowly drifting down from the sky. Just now, because the Lion King did not understand the magecraft known as dragon breath, and did not know the property that objects destroyed by dragon breath would be converted into feathers of light, she suffered a small loss. Just at the moment the ground was destroyed, the destroyed ground converted into feathers of light, which lightly struck the Lion King's shoulder armor. The Lion King, thinking it was harmless, was hit as if by a heavy blow the moment the feathers of light made contact. The shoulder armor shattered instantly, and even her shoulder sustained significant damage. The Lion King looked at Rangaminiad in her hand, then looked up at the troublesome master-servant duo opposite her, leveled the holy spear in her hand, and seemed to intend to release her noble phantasm. Gilgamesh also discovered the Lion King's intention. With a casual snap of his fingers, countless chains extended from the golden ripples surrounding the Lion King, binding toward her. Facing the incoming chains of heaven, the Lion King had to abandon her plan to release her noble phantasm, and began to dodge and deflect the incoming chains. Rin also seized the opportunity to release dragon breath again, continuously sweeping fire at the Lion King. Just as the battle began, Shiro Kotomine discovered that his magical power was being consumed in large quantities, and at the same time, Martha felt the Lion King's surging battle intent. After greeting Karen and Shiro Kotomine, Martha hurried to the battlefield. Shiro Kotomine and Karen also hurried toward the battle location. Gilgamesh looked smugly at the Lion King, who was suspended in midair by the chains of heaven and in a sorry state. At this time, the Lion King's armor was damaged in many places, revealing her mature body. Ha 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 ha, so that little girl grows up to look like this, ha ha ha. I allow you to become my collection and live on, ha 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 ha. Rin looked at the smug Gilgamesh and shouted at him with an anxious expression. Gil, get out of the way. This guy, she has no divinity, your chains of heaven are useless against her. Gilgamesh was stunned upon hearing this. The Lion King, hearing Rin's words, no longer feigned, broke free from the chains of heaven, and threw the holy spear in her hand forcefully toward Gilgamesh. My God, why have you forsaken me? Centered on Rin's face, a huge magic circle floated in the air, emitting a red-black light, slowing down the holy spear. At the same time, Rin released dragon breath again, deflecting the holy spear. Gilgamesh looked at the holy spear that brushed past him and somewhat angrily took out Ea, seemingly annoyed that the Lion King had made him lose face in front of Rin. At this moment, Rin looked at Gilgamesh with a strange gaze, starting to suspect which period of him she had summoned this time. Rin was indeed not wrong. This servant avatar of Gilgamesh before her was from the period when he had just ascended the throne. Because it was a relatively young period among his various age stages, his personality was not only cruel but often unexpectedly careless and self-centered. However, this servant avatar, which had received memories from the main body after descending, was actually better to Rin than the one in the Fourth War. Perhaps this was because at this age stage, he had not yet experienced becoming friends with Enkidu. Come to think of it, Rin was actually the first friend this stage of Gilgamesh had encountered. King of Heroes, can you extinguish your anger? Gilgamesh, who was holding Ea and preparing to activate it, looked at the suddenly appearing Martha. Instead of stopping, he increased his magical power output. As Ea spun faster and faster, a red magical storm surged out from Ea. Martha looked at the Ea about to be activated in Gilgamesh's hand, shook her head, turned to signal the Lion King, and then leaped to stand in front of Rin to prevent Rin from interfering with the Lion King. The Lion King did not hesitate to recall the holy spear, and the moment Ea was released, she also released her holy spear. Enuma Elish, Star of Creation. Rongaminiad, Anchor of the Storm. Luminous, far-reaching spear. The red magical power representing the cutting of the world and destruction, and the golden magical power representing the pillar of the world and divinity, collided madly. The massive sound resonated throughout Fuyuki City, and the terrifying magical power emitted by the collision caused even the magi and church personnel, who were in the middle of battle, to stop and turn to look at the terrifying collision. The roaring light shattered everything. The wind pressure and scattered magical power formed by the collision instantly pulverized everything within a radius of several kilometers. Karen and Shiro Kodomine, who were anxiously rushing to the battlefield, were blown away without a trace by the wind pressure that struck instantly. Martha, utilizing Fuyuki City's characteristic of being by the sea, activated Saint of the Waterfront, and Natural Body, Sea, to resist the aftermath of the collision, while vigilantly staring at Rin, who was calmly resisting the aftermath relying on the St. George Sanctuary. What a formidable young girl. Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/TL Scarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone, if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating. Thanks. Chapter 94, Chapter 94, Father-Son Mutual Killing. 1329 words. Time returns to just moments ago, while Gilgamesh and the Lion King were fiercely battling. On a tall building in the distance, Archer and Assassin were staring at each other from across the distance. Archer stood on the railing of the rooftop, looking at the Assassin on another high building not far away, and shrugged. Why must you trouble me? I really hate trouble. After speaking, Archer leaped up, manifested a longbow in his hand, and without hesitation, fired 3 swords, which flew toward Assassin in a triangular formation. A flash of light appeared in Assassin's hand, and a Calico M950 automatic pistol appeared in Assassin's hand. Without hesitation, he poured a rain of bullets toward the swords in the air, while simultaneously making several agile jumps to reach the signal tower on the high building, avoiding Archer, who was following the swords. Archer twirled the twin swords in his hands, looking at the pistol in Assassin's hand with slight surprise. Modern weaponry. Are you a modern servant? Forget it, once I take care of you, I'll know everything. After speaking, Archer launched a charge toward the assassin standing on top of the signal tower. Soon, the two servants began a fierce battle on this signal tower 100 meters in the air. Assassin used scapegoat again, transferring an ordinary person from downstairs to his position to take Archer's strike for him. Stained again and again with the blood of the innocent, a roar erupted in Archer's heart, and he roared, "Assassin!" Then, he threw the twin swords in his hands toward Assassin. Crane wing triple strike. Facing the pair of twin swords and Archer attacking him, Assassin calmly activated his noble phantasm. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. The time in Assassin's eyes slowed down. It was not that Assassin slowed down time, but that Assassin accelerated his own time. Instantly accelerated, Assassin dodged the crane wing triple strike that should have been a guaranteed hit, flashed a few times to get behind Archer, raised a strange gun, and aimed it at Archer's heart. It was not just the sound of gunfire that rang out, but also the clash between the noble phantasm of Gilgamesh and the Lion King, as immense magical energy and wind pressure struck instantly. The origin bullet fired from the gun was deflected by the wind pressure, grazing Archer and disappearing into the horizon. The violent magical energy and immense wind pressure crushed everything in their path. Archer and Assassin were forced to cease their battle and leap off the teetering high-rise. In the air, Archer turned his head, looked at the masked assassin, and shouted at him. "Kiritsugu, it's you, isn't it?" Hearing Archer's words, Assassin glanced at him, then, without hesitation, used scapegoat to swap places with an ordinary person and vanished into the air. Archer watched with a headache as the ordinary person, bewildered, wailed in the air. He used a piece of rubble falling from the building to reach the ordinary person, and caught her in his arms. After landing, Archer casually placed the ordinary person behind a sturdy pillar. "All right, little miss, you can open your eyes now." The passerby, who had been screaming in fear with her eyes closed, opened them. Seeing the handsome Archer before her, she blushed and then hurriedly bowed to Archer, thanking him repeatedly. Archer paid no more attention to the passerby and looked up at the sky. "Kiritsugu, have you become an existence like me as well? Do you regret it?" The wind pressure and magical energy dissipated, and everything returned to calm. A crater with a radius of several kilometers appeared in Fuyuki City. Rin looked at everything around her that had been leveled, her heart suddenly skipped a beat, and a tear involuntarily traced a path from the corner of her eye. Martha looked at the young girl before her, sighed, and asked, "Do you regret it?" Rin looked at Martha and shook her head, saying, "Have you ever regretted what you've done? Perhaps it's heartless, perhaps it's cruel, but I have my goals, I have people I need to protect, I cannot stop my steps here." Then, Rin looked at the stunned Martha and continued, "Even if there are sad things, I never blame others, because if I blamed others, wouldn't that mean I hadn't worked hard at all? I have always been working hard, for a better future." After saying this, Rin released the St. George's domain on her body, applied reinforcement magic to herself, lunged forward to Martha, extended both palms toward Martha's abdomen, and struck down with force. "What I need to do now is defeat you enemies." Martha had no time to dodge and took Rin's palm strike head-on. A surge of energy passed through her back, and the spasms in her abdomen caused Martha to involuntarily double over. Rin took the opportunity to deliver a high kick to Martha's chin, sending her flying. "Gil, the battle isn't over yet." As she spoke, Rin's magical energy surged, transforming into a healing force that restored the abrasions caused by the collision of the noble phantasm of Gilgamesh and the Lion King. Gilgamesh raised EA toward the Lion King in front of him, and struck down again without hesitation. Enuma Elish. The star of creation that splits heaven and earth. Holy Spear, anchor released. Rangaminiad. The two noble phantasms collided once again. Rin calmly deployed the St. George's domain again to resist the aftershocks. Martha, who had been kicked away, recovered with the help of Saint of the Shore and Natural Body, C, looked at Rin floating in the air, and curled her lip. "Girl, your punches are quite powerful. Let us fight too." After saying this, she endured the still raging aftershocks and swung a punch at Rin without hesitation. Facing the punch of the Iron Fist Saint, even with the protection of the St. George's domain, Rin was knocked flying along with the domain, and slammed heavily into the ground. However, thanks to the existence of the St. George's domain, although Rin was knocked flying, she remained unscathed. Rin floated back up from the ground, increased her magical energy output, shielded Martha within the St. George's domain as well, and simultaneously landed on the ground, activated reinforcement magic, and shouted at Martha. "Let's fight!" Martha and Rin, staying within the St. George domain, began to charge at each other, simultaneously punching each other in the cheek. Rin, hit by the punch, flew backward, while Martha only retreated a few steps. A smile appeared on the corner of Rin's mouth. She climbed up from the ground, wiped the blood from her lip. The long-lost adrenaline made Rin, even knowing she was no match for Martha in melee combat, charge at Martha again without hesitation. What Rin needed right now was the catharsis of fist-to-flesh combat. Rin, struck in the abdomen by Martha's punch, couldn't help but retch, but her hand, mercilessly transformed into a hand blade, chopped at the inner crook of Martha's arm. Boom! The third collision of noble phantasms occurred, and the massive roar echoed through Fuyuki City for the third time today. Book recommendation: A Wonderful Journey starting from Type Moon synopsis. System: a high-end, classy, and sophisticated term, the golden thigh among cheat codes. A mass manufacturer of hackers. Just as Li Zihan discovered he had a system, and was ecstatic, he received a message from the system. This system is shutting down due to insufficient energy. Please, host, work hard to collect energy as soon as possible and restart the system. Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon.com/TL Scarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone, if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating. Thanks. Chapter 95. Chapter 95. The Lion King's withdrawal. 1412 words. The Lion King was panting rapidly, her eyes fixed firmly on the Gilgamesh opposite her, struggling to raise Rangaminiad. "Master, I need more magical energy." At this time, Shiro Kotomine and Karen had been blown several miles away by the wind pressure. Shiro Kotomine, who had barely managed to survive the 3 aftershocks by relying on the temple Rin had given to Karen, was now nearly depleted of magical energy. Hearing the Lion King's request for more magical energy, he glanced at Karen beside him, who was struggling to maintain the temple, gritted his teeth, raised his left hand and said, "By the command of the command spells, Lancer, retreat." As one command spell on Shiro Kotomine's hand disappeared, the scarred Lion King appeared beside Shiro Kotomine and Karen. The Lion King, having her battle forcibly interrupted, looked with dissatisfaction at Shiro Kotomine, who was collapsed on the ground, and Karen, who was drenched in sweat. Her expression shifted from dissatisfaction to apology. Gilgamesh, who was preparing to activate EA to duel the Lion King again, was stunned to see the Lion King vanish, then stood in place and laughed heartily. "Mongrel, did you run away?" Martha, who was fighting Rin, also noticed the Lion King being recalled by command spells. She elbowed Rin in the forehead, then kicked Tohsaka Rin away, and then left the scene in a few flashes. "Little girl, your punches are quite powerful. Looking forward to fighting again next time." Rin lay on the ground, sore all over, and reached out a hand to shield her eyes from the glaring sunlight. "Next time I won't engage in melee combat with you, though that guy didn't use her noble phantasm either. As expected, I'm still far from being on par with servants." During the recent exchange, Rin had noticed Martha holding back. Although Rin didn't know the reason for the other party holding back, through this battle, Rin also understood the gap between herself and servants. Gilgamesh slowly walked over to Rin, who was lying on the ground. Seeing Rin covered in mud and bruised all over, he couldn't help but chuckle softly, then picked up Rin in a bridal carry, summoned the Vimana, and walked onto it while holding Rin. The Vimana quickly ascended into the sky and disappeared into the horizon as a speck of light. "Gil, put me down, this is so embarrassing." "Ha ha ha ha, Rin, this is the embrace of a king, this is a special favor for the wounded." On the distant Mount Ryudo, Waver was standing behind the King of Conquerors, looking at the massive crater in the city, lit a cigar and sighed. Rin has caused too much of a scene this time. The King of Conquerors didn't care, waved his large hand at Waver and said, "Does a powerhouse like Little Miss need to care about the thoughts of these weaklings? Little Miss only needs to lead her own followers and constantly advance toward her goal." Gray, on the side, did not actually agree with the King of Conquerors' words, but out of respect for Waver, Gray could only keep her head down and stand silently to the side. After the King of Conquerors finished speaking, seeing no one reply, he shrugged boredly and turned to walk into the ruins on Mount Ryudo. Waver, trailing behind the King of Conquerors, looked at the silent, head-bowed Gray and reached out to pat Gray's shoulder. Gray looked up at Waver and asked, "Master, do we really not need to care about the thoughts of the weak?" Waver showed an, as I thought, expression and ruffled Gray's hair. "Gray, His Majesty meant that you don't need to care about those enemies who oppose you. The incident Rin caused this time, once the barrier is lifted and exposed to the outside world, many people will definitely use this as an excuse to cause trouble for Rin." "I understand." Waver watched Gray's face light up with a smile again, smiled with relief, and led Gray to quickly catch up with the King of Conquerors who had walked away. It was just that Waver didn't know that in the eyes of those future visitors from Chaldea, Fuyuki City would not be exposed to the outside world. The future Fuyuki City had already become a legend. Also, in a house near Mount Ryudo, the mature version of Shinji was looking with a grim expression at the massive crater in the city, while simultaneously turning on the speaker function of the communicator with Chaldea. Rin said she and the Lion King were allies in this battle, and hadn't fought each other. Did the future change? At this moment, Olga Marie's anxious voice came from the communicator. "What did you do? Why has history changed?" Gudako, standing beside the mature version of Shinji, said timidly. "Vice Director, Shinji uncle, and I didn't do anything." Olga Marie, Gudako, and I really didn't do anything. Then how could it turn out like this? I just became Vice Director, my first command operation. My sister didn't teach me what to do in this situation. At this moment, a gentle male voice came from the communicator. "Vice Director, don't panic, there should still be a way. Why don't we send Fujimaru and Mash over as well? Since history has already changed, we must do our best to ensure the outcome and prevent any more accidents." Olga Marie on the other end of the communicator seemed to be stunned for a while, or perhaps lost in thought. A while later, Olga Marie's voice sounded on the communicator again. "Shinji, what do you think of Dr. Romani's suggestion? Let's do as the doctor said. I think Rin listing Fujimaru Ritsuka as the first priority must have a special purpose, but if only Rin were here right now. If my sister were here, what would we have to worry about? All right, prepare to receive Fujimaru Ritsuka, and Mash on your end. I will arrange the spirit origin transfer immediately." At this moment, Sagia Monica walked alone, skipping and hopping, into the Einsburn castle, waved her hand casually, and broke Rin's seal. "Ha ha ha ha, Tohsaka Rin, I'm out again. This time, I will definitely kill you." "No, that won't do. Rin-chan is mine." Engramenyu heard someone nearby and hurriedly turned to look at the young girl who had released him. Suddenly, a strange feeling rose in Engramenyu's heart. An indescribable feeling made Engramenyu feel as if he had returned to his mother's embrace when he was a child. The malice in his eyes disappeared without a trace and gradually became dazed. Monica covered her mouth, looking at the Engramenyu in front of her, and giggled. "I am not your mother, you can call me Lady Monica." "It's painful, isn't it? It's lonely, isn't it? Come, follow me." "Yes, Lady Monica." Mato residence. Zoken Mato, feeling refreshed after absorbing a young girl with some talent for magic, turned to look at Kiritsugu Amiya sitting on the sofa nearby. He, Amiya, did you find the masters of those two servants from the daytime?" Kiritsugu Amiya casually pulled 2 files from under his trench coat, and threw them in front of Zoken Mato. "The master of the servant who fought the king of heroes is Shiro Kotomine, the adopted son of Kirai Kotomine from the last great war, and the master of the other servant is his daughter, Karen Hortensia. They are currently staying in the old residence of the head of a local gang. Amiya, then let's go and eliminate those two little ones tonight. Narbalek took the files handed over by Kirai Kotomine, read through them carefully, and offered a gentle smile toward Kirai Kotomine. Thank you for your hard work, Kirai. After this incident is over, I, on behalf of the burial agency, welcome you to join. Then, Narbalek turned and handed the files in his hand to the captain of the Heresy Inquisition Knights, Litzvaif Strelindabari, who was standing nearby. I'll leave this pair of heretical boy and girl to you, Litzvaif. Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/tlscarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating. Thanks. Chapter 96. Chapter 96. Church Raid and Black Sabers Attack. 1341 words. Back at the Tohsaka Annex, Rin had already used healing magecraft to recover from all her injuries. At this moment, apart from being a bit dirty like a little kitten, Rin had no injuries left on her body. Rin pouted, glared at Gilgamesh behind her, and said aggressively, I'm going to take a bath. And you, if you dare to hug me like that next time, just wait for your treasury to hemorrhage again. After speaking, Rin left the back of her head to Gilgamesh, then turned and walked towards her room. Gilgamesh looked at Rin's angry retreating figure, shrugged indifferently, flashed with gold light to change back into casual clothes, then walked to the hall, opened a bottle of red wine casually, and lay on the sofa to savor it carefully. Rin returned to her room angrily, walked into the bathroom, filled the water, and lay in the bathtub with a hint of exhaustion. Looking at the bathroom ceiling with lifeless eyes, she muttered to herself, I'm sorry. Soon night fell. After the fierce battle during the day, the whole city was silent. Every household kept their doors closed. The ordinary people dared not go out any more and could only pray to the gods in their hearts in vain. And the servants of God, the church personnel, appeared in a rare group. Over 100 church personnel walked openly on the street, ignoring the magus and familiars monitoring them. Walking at the very front was a white-haired girl holding a violin-shaped gun shield. She was the leader of the Heresy Inquisition Knights, known as the Saint of the Citadel, Saint Shield Knight, and mediator of music and law, Litz. Litz stopped, turned her head to look at Kirai Kotomine beside her, and pointed to a typical Japanese-style residence in front. Kirai, is it there? Lord Leader, this is indeed where that pair of masters is located. Litz nodded to Kirai Kotomine, then waved to the agents and Inquisition Knights behind her. Soon the agents scattered, surrounding the entire courtyard in a siege formation, while the knights took out their weapons and gathered into an offensive formation at the main gate. Then Litz walked to the front of the knight formation and punched the courtyard gate without hesitation. Litz, with amazing arm strength, used her fist, which could strike with an average of 2 tons of force, combined with magic power to form air fists, instantly blasting the gate in front of her to pieces. Then the knights behind Litz raised their shields and advanced steadily into the courtyard. The nearby agents also simultaneously leaped onto the courtyard walls, constantly throwing black keys inside. Having long noticed someone attacking, the Lion King and Martha did not disturb the sleeping Shiro Kotomine and Karen. After Martha set up a barrier in Shiro Kotomine and Karen's room, she nodded to the Lion King and rushed out of the house without hesitation. Just as she rushed out of the house into the courtyard, Martha was immediately faced with black keys from all directions. Martha smiled at these juniors, coolly flicked the sun hat off her head, leaped gently, dodged the incoming black keys, and arrived behind an agent on the wall. Martha extended her finger, tapped the agent who was still scanning and looking for her, then saw the agent turn around with a confused expression, smiled sweetly, and struck down with an iron fist without mercy. The knocked-away agent flew out like a cannonball, knocking down several other agents. Then, with speed beyond ordinary people, Martha quickly began to continuously attack the agents on the wall. Kirai Kotomine held his chest, fell to the ground, and looked at his unconscious companions, not understanding why the servant in front of him was showing mercy to him. Of course, Kirai Kotomine did not know that it was from the fist technique that Kirai Kotomine used when resisting just now that Martha saw the shadow of Rin's fist technique. Just when about 1/3 of the agents were knocked down, the knights also broke into the courtyard. Litz frowned as she looked at the agents lying on the ground, turned to nod to her deputy, and then charged at Martha with her shield gun. "Leave this servant to the leader, you guys come with me to grab those two masters." The deputy looked at Litz, who was in contact with Martha, and shouted to the knights behind him, and the nearby agents. Martha punched Litz's shield, causing Litz to crash embarrassingly against the courtyard wall. "I don't suggest you go in. The one inside won't be as merciful as I am." Litz rubbed her aching chest and swung her shield to slap Martha, who had her back to her. "Don't worry about her, hurry in and grab the masters." Martha sidestepped to avoid Litz's attack and hit Litz's chin with an uppercut. Disobedient juniors need to be properly cared for. Sure enough, the agent who rushed into the house let out a scream, and then, with a large hole appearing in his chest, he was thrown out of the house like a cannonball. Then the Lion King appeared at the door of the room, holding the holy spear. After waving the spear a few times, a wind blade appeared, drawing a line on the ground outside the door. "Martha, anyone who crosses this line is my enemy." Martha traded a punch with Litz, then turned her head to look at the Lion King at the door and nodded. "Understood. Thank you, Artoria." Martha knew that it was already the limit to keep the Lion King from attacking the juniors in the courtyard. Now Martha only hoped to defeat these juniors as quickly as possible so they wouldn't go to their deaths anymore. But these stubborn people in the mystery world would never understand Martha's good intentions. Several knights looked at each other, raised their shields, and began to charge at the Lion King in front of the door. The moment these knights crossed that line, the Lion King gently waved the holy spear in her hand, and the upper and lower bodies of the knights were instantly separated. Litz watched her dead companions and shouted in grief and anger. Then she gritted her teeth, used all her strength to hold off Martha's punch with her shield, raised her head, and headbutted Martha. Litz, covered in blood and dizzy, raised her head, first looked at Martha, who was recovering after rubbing her head indifferently, then turned to look at her companions who were constantly trying to break through the Lion King, and dying one after another, and shouted an order. The nearby agents and knights looked at Litz in surprise, then the church personnel showed their strict discipline, silently helped up their unconscious and injured companions, and began to evacuate the courtyard in an orderly manner. When the church personnel retreated from the courtyard, Litz's deputy came to Litz and asked, "Lord Leader, are we really just retreating like this? Help me notify Narbalek, tell him I need support, it's best to send that guy Malian Solomon." At this moment, on a hill not far away, Zokan Meta turned to look at Black Saber beside him and said, He, your majesty. The farce below is over, is it time for you to make your entrance?" Black Saber waved her hand at Zokan Mato and Kiritsugu Amiya. "You guys keep that fist woman busy, I am very interested in that person holding the spear." After speaking, Black Saber changed her casual clothes into a suit of full-body armor, held the magic sword, and charged at the Lion King in the distance. Hope you enjoy this fanfiction. If you do, and would like to read the next 30 chapters in advance, please do check out my Patreon. com/TL Scarlet. Also don't forget to give me a power stone if you do like this fiction. Your support really motivates me to continue doing my best in translating. Thanks. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.